welcome everybody to our expert webinar entitled Faster Rounds, Better Data, Bottom Line Wins, Lessons from Candia Woods and the Oaks. And I'm delighted to have Craig McLaughlin and Ben Alexander from Candia Woods and the Oaks course. Craig, how are you this afternoon?
Good, good. Thank you for having us today.
100%. And Ben, how are you? You're good?
Doing great, thank you.
Brilliant. We are presenting this in association with the New England Golf Course Owner Association chapter, and yeah, we've been multi-year partners of theirs, and I know many of you in the crowd have received their messages to come and check out what we can learn from these two amazing operators and operations. Ben, won't you do us a favor and introduce your course and also yourself, how you got to be in the seat that you're in, and then we'll do the same with Craig. It's always fantastic to hear the golf stories and people's career path.
Yeah, I'm at the Oaks, so one of our two courses, which is what started up in 03, Craig?
2003, yep.
Yeah, 2003. I worked at Candia Woods for a few years, took about a decade away at a different course, then came back 4 years ago as the GM here at the Oaks. And we're a public facility, do about 40,000 or so rounds.
Busy. And yourself, Craig, and also tell us how the two courses are connected.
Yes, Craig McLaughlin, Candia Woods Golf Links. This is finishing up my 19th season with the Candia Woods and Oaks family. I started in 06 as an intern, and was the assistant for a couple seasons and head professional, and then made my way to the Oaks for a few years as director of golf. And then 22 came back to Candia Woods as a director of golf. So been fortunate to be a part of the Candia Oaks family. We're similarly an 18-hole public facility, approximately 40,000 rounds. We are sister courses, approximately 45, 50 minutes apart from one another. Both play a little differently. Candia is a little more open, hit it, find it. Oaks is a little more target oriented.
That sounds brilliant. I love the 19-year journey within the organization. Yeah, you won't believe how often I hear that, and somebody caddied as a youngster and then ends up being the director of golf operations at a major golf course, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant how golf really looks after its people like that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a healthy competition between the two courses? And also, I'm assuming you're sharing lots of learnings. How does that map out for you in your day-to-day and in your planning?
Absolutely. I mean, we coordinate with one another, if not, daily, at least several times a week, just to, go over ideas, suggestions, different things, just what place is doing something better that we can learn from one another. Definitely some hard competition with our Champions Cup, and
Hmm.
Candia Woods took that this year after a 4-year hiatus of the Oaks winning.
Okay.
So in terms of competition in that way, but we do keep an eye on how we're doing with things and how we can push one another along.
Wonderful. Ben, tell us a little bit about some of the programs you're running and how you keep people coming back and build the community around the course.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty active in our leagues. We do about a dozen outings that most return as well. So in the grand scheme of outings, not our primary focus, but then just a lot of introductory leagues with our driving range. I mean, separate from Tag Marshall, we have Top Tracer here. It's a great introductory piece to get just a ton of new people introduced to the game, and then we transition a good portion of those over to the golf course as well. So, and then keep them coming back. I mean, I think pace of play in any public golf course that's doing 40,000 rounds, you got to keep pace of play in check. That tends to be one of the leading hot buttons of disappointment for customers for sure. So That's where tag's been pretty integral for us for sure.
Brilliant. And yeah, we're excited to learn a little bit more about your journey also with Top Tracer, because obviously that is a nice sort of plug and play that you can phase and improve. We'd love to learn a bit more how you've done that when we get to that. But if you'll allow me just a quick introduction to Tag Marshall, and before I switch over, also, congrats to you and the team and the teams at both courses for again winning an award with us this year. So what we do is we've got 700 plus golf courses. A lot of them have signed up and are due to get installed in the next few months. So soon we'll be at 900. And we're benchmarking the performance according to data, and it literally is the entirety of the US, Canada, Europe, where we have partners. So for your course to come in what's effectively the top 50, top 80 performers, and some standout courses within that is fantastic to see. And we're going to look at some of your data in a little while, and that shows in the results. So we're getting close to 100 million rounds of golf tracks. So there's certainly some critical mass, and obviously our system learns from data, right? There's machine learning and AI in play in the back end. And all of these rounds come with many, many more data points, literally in the hundreds of billions. And for us to analyze those and extract value is a very exciting challenge. And we are deployed in the private space, anywhere from Baltusrol, Shinnecock, and Long Island, all the way to the California side, and also in the daily fee space. And again, from Pebble Beach to the Orcas at St. Andrews. And it's amazing for us that a lot of these top operators choose to work with us, and we get to learn a lot from them, because some of them are really pushing the boundaries of where golf is going to go in the next few years. And for us to help and provide data backing and also learn what they need and think the industry needs and where it needs to go is fantastic. And also in the tour space, we've been a mainstay with the DP World Tour for 6 or 7 years now, and do a lot of the events as well as the US amateur and RNA championship events. And again, that's another arena for us to learn. And then we take the best pieces and put them back in our system and make sure that those strategies filter through into the industry. Let me jump into, as operators, what are some of the experience factors we want to try and uplift and match for our players? Let me ask this question. Both of you may agree or disagree with each other, but Craig, what would you say in your journey in golf as a player, as a friend to players, having stewarded literally hundreds and thousands of rounds now? What are the top 3 things that an operator needs to get right for golfers in 2025?
I'd say the top 3 I would think would be course conditions, the pace, flow of play, and then in a close tie third would be value, cost, and tee time availability.
Value, cost, tee time availability, and we have obviously seen a big demand in play. Ben, same question to you, and maybe also while you're answering, if you would go back to what was life like pre-COVID versus now, in terms of tee time availability and demand. But give us the top 3 as you see it, and maybe it's the same as Craig, not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd mirror Craig on that. And then as far as pre-COVID versus post, I mean, it's just night and day. So that's where I think that the tee time availability and, from an operator standpoint, trying to find that right balance of tee time intervals and to try to maximize how many people can get on the golf course without slowing down play is crucial. So
Sure. Yeah, and I think both of you made the point that value comes in, and I would argue that if you get good conditioning and you present the course well from a pace and flow play point of view, that's value to players, right? So then maybe at this point you do earn the right to ask um, slightly higher fees if you can provide the quality. Yeah, that's great to hear, and obviously we always want to look at the research and be guided by the experts here. So the USGA has done some extensive research into this, and they worked with the University of Wisconsin. And this particular research study was led by Professor Nova, who we know well. She's the director of golf operations at Erin Hills, who's obviously the 2017 US Open host and also this year's Women's Open host. So she's wearing that researcher hat and she's firmly embedded in creating a fantastic experience for golfers at this major host. And they quizzed a couple of thousand golfers and they did extensive multi-month research at various facilities, also tracking pace of play, incidentally with our system. But what they found is there's 1,000 touch points in the play experience, and that might sound a bit crazy, but if you think about it, loading in your clubs into the trunk and booking your round, you're getting a confirmation, driving through the gate, meet and greet in the clubhouse. All of these are touch points all the way to the post round where the course might check in with you and inform you about their next event or what have you. All of these are touch points, right? And they wanted to know which ones of those delight players, the ones that really make their day, and which ones hurt the experience the most. And they found that out of everything that happens on a golf course and in and around the game, corrective pace of play actions and other people's speed, which is not the same thing, are the most frustrating thing for players. So corrective pace of play actions means Marshall comes over and says, guys, you're slow, get on with it, right? That negative confrontational approach. At the same time, other people's speed. So me as a player, I'm so frustrated if the groups ahead of me are slowing me down. I'm having to wait in this T-box wait times. Equally as frustrating. So there's obviously a need for management, but don't do it in a negative confrontational way. So that's what golfers are telling us. And then just to back that up, on the flip side, the most delightful item on a golf course is not the conditioning, even though that's close, but it's the friendliness and there's positive etiquette by the player assistant or whoever comes out and looks after you and manages pace around you. And close to that, it's not exactly number 2, but it's in the top 5 or 8 is information provided about pace of play. And again, that speaks to the other side, right? Because information about pace of play means that I can be reasonably sure that this golf course is going to manage pace and take my time seriously. And the etiquette is exactly the opposite of corrective pace. Craig, for you, obviously, like I said, having stewarded a couple of 100,000 rounds, are you surprised at all at how polar this experience is for players? And how does that filter in, what you're seeing in the day-to-day?
Sure. No, I don't see it not polling. It was certainly being spoken to as a group or having our ranger need to approach a group about pace of play is always a touchy subject. So to have the ability to really train the golfer to understand their pace and where they're at with tag Marshall, and then having the data to show the players as well for our player assistants to use, it helps the conversation be a lot smoother, a lot friendlier, and a lot easier to manage for sure.
And Ben, from your side, obviously, managing quite a large team, do you pick staff that you can entrust with that positive etiquette? And then what are some of the key points in your selection of who gets to do that job? Who actually does that at the course?
Yeah, I mean that would generally fall, under the purview of our director of golf, head golf professional, and key golf shop staff. So as far as like notifications, it would go out digitally to any group, and then we've got rangers and out there monitoring the course, and one in particular here that trains the staff the best that he can on how to handle those. So we kind of all have our hands on it. So many moving parts that it's important to have more than just one set of eyes in a perfect world.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good message, right? But obviously you've got important things to do, and everything's well on the course until it's not, right? So you need to make sure that you're proactive about it. Um, but that's great to hear. So one of the little takeaways that we normally try to convey is, and this is also part of the research, the marshal role as a whole is not well liked by golfers, right? So very often courses that we work with, we advise them, well, we need to call this person marshal, or can we just call them a play assistant or a course ambassador, if you will, just adjusting that role slightly so that the players don't expect confrontation with the repositioning. And then also the messaging that staff member brings for it to be not confrontational. And one of the easy ways in which golfers can understand an interaction is if you say to them, hey guys, you're out of position by half a hole, or you're 5 minutes out of position, rather than you're slow, right? So it's very often about the positioning of the message. And this is where we're finding that positive etiquette filters through then, right? Because I'm here to help you. And I know you don't want to hold up other people, but I don't have to be confrontational about it. So we're going to jump into another piece of research here that speaks to that. And this comes from one of our partners in the industry that we are building a very exciting deeper integration with. They're called Players First. So they do a phenomenal amount of post-round surveys that feed back data about your operation to a dashboard that you can then look into. How are we doing across certain metrics? And that might be anything from inside the clubhouse, food, service levels, outside the course, conditioning. And it's a catalog of questions that you can make bigger or smaller. And then you have a dashboard that shows you your trends and also if there's glaring issues, right? According to the players. And so they do a couple of million surveys a season. And what they found is, well, it's it's not that difficult to get certain things right for the players in practice. We just need to know what they are, right? So players want to be made to feel welcome. That's what matters. They want a good flow and pace of play on the golf course, and they want to meet on-course staff. So having that on-course interaction is always welcome by players if it's supportive, positive, and it adds value to them. And ultimately, what that brings is the net promoter score. You might recall that is the good old, the hotel or the airline or the car rental company asks you, rate out of 10, 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this service, golf course, whatever it is, to your friends and peers, where 10 is best thing ever, I'll be back, take my money, I'll tell everyone. So is 9 and 8, right? But normally people go all in once they feel good about it. Then anything between 4 and 7 is neutral, and a lot of people won't respond. It's just, it was what I expected. And then anything below is negative, right? So that's where we really have to do better. And look, we're not going to always get it right. And one of my favorite things is the restaurants that put out their Yelp reviews and said, one of them says, for instance, somebody complained that they couldn't get a coffee at this restaurant because it was closed on the day, right? It was a public holiday. Or, or yeah, silly complaints. You know, we can't always get it right, and there's a small percentile of people and consumers that obviously have expectations that we may not be able to meet, but the vast majority we really can. And what they also found is if we don't get it quite right, the net promoter score really drops, and also restaurants visit drops, and we're losing opportunity to engage with our golfers. So obviously you guys have got strategies around that, making players feel welcome, good flow, meeting on-course staff. Yeah, tell us a little bit how that maps out in your world. Craig, how do you make players feel welcome, one, but also how do you make sure that they see that you have competency around managing the flow on the golf course? And I'm thinking particularly about, yeah, what do you show them in the clubhouse just as they walk in?
I'm sure we always greet folks as they come in, whether the outside staff, first as they're getting carts ready, or they're grabbing their cart as they walk in, greeted by the staff. We also we have Tag Marshal on a screen behind our shop counter, so that helps to show the players that we do monitor what's happening on the golf course to make sure everybody's enjoying a good flow out there. And then as the Rangers are going around the golf course, even if it's a not negative reaction, they will just meet groups, ask them how they're doing, if there's anything they need for the day, and things like that. So try to also make sure some positive interactions are happening before negative even has to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy, and we're going to talk about the technology just now, and a bit more how you've got your team dialed into that. But yeah, so we learned that pace of play is kind of a big deal for players in the real world, and we need to proactively manage it. But there's obviously also business benefits to doing it well, which we'll get to from a revenue and opportunity standpoint. But just to take a second to talk about the technology that we're providing and that we keep looking to improve further. So we have walking trackers that will go with a walking group. That's obviously what you'll find in play at some of the caddy-based courses in the New York area, Chicago area, and also Scotland. But the majority of our deployments are cart-based. So we have a hidden away tracker, and we have a 10-inch or an 8-inch screen that is portrait mounted like the Holler Head, right? And that gives you all these good old GPS amenities, but we really use it to aggregate data and make sure that we have two things. But one is a really proactive and dynamic live map, and the other one is the back end data. So we really understand what's happening on our golf course live, but also over time, right? So that we can incrementally improve. So we think of it as an incremental improvement machine. And in your case, from what I understand, you have the 8-inch units installed in your carts. So this is the front end. Ben, from your side, and let me jump into a live map that gives that sort of top level view on the courses. Who have you got dialed in to the program over at your course? Who's using the system daily?
I would say myself, our two golf professionals, and then it's always up. We don't have ours like Candia does on a big screen, but it's always up on both shop computers. So at a minimum, they're used to logging in, having that up, checking it regularly, and at a minimum spotting the colors. If they see a
For sure.
purple, or I forget the exact color, but spot that, and then at least start a conversation with our on-course ranger and other staff on how we're going to go about having that discussion. So
you explained the difference between the two courses earlier, and you can see it quite clearly. Obviously, quite a bit more wooded. The Oaks course, it's got that name for a reason, right? And I'm just picturing from your clubhouse, line of sight management isn't going to get you very far here, right? Because you're not going to really see. Do you remember a time before you had that tool, and what was that like?
prior to Tag Marshal,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it would involve going out on the golf course, starting at the 18th green and just driving backwards and hoping you run into trouble.
Mm.
And we have no line of sight. You're right. I mean, if there's a flaw in our design, we can't see almost anything from the golf shop. So it's unbelievable eyes for our golf course, really. And for us, I'll speak solely. I mean, holes 1 through 5 create the biggest pace issues for us. So we try to catch everything early and often, which I think then snowballs into, generally speaking, it's a much easier conversation because somebody on the third hole is not going to be 45 minutes behind, I hope.
Yeah.
So it's better to catch it early when it's a nice subtle nudge, and then the next time it's a little easier as well. And but yeah, trying to catch it super early on our end is key.
Yeah, what 100% agree with you. We see the best results if you can have eyes on and also get make sure that people understand that you're here to help them along, right? And you're responsible for 200 people today and not just them. Do that early in the first 3 to 5 holes is a great strategy. Craig, on the Candia Woods side, why don't you do us a favor and just do a 2 minute rundown of the colors? What do we see here? That's obviously not today. It's not quite as busy. That would have been a few weeks ago. And also talk a little bit about the integration that you have switched on with Club Profit.
Sure. Uh, if we were looking at this map from a ranger or a golf shop perspective, we would notice the big squares in pink or purple, if you will. Those would be indicators that the group is delaying. So that would mean we would need to click on that and see how far back they are. We usually use a threshold of plus 5 minutes. Sometimes a bad hole happens, so we usually will not really do an interaction until we hit +5 or greater. Anything under that is more of a monitor. The yellow would be groups that are being delayed by the purple or pink. And then red groups are behind pace, but not affecting anyone. And obviously green is good. The Club Profit integration that we have, it automatically will pull our whole T sheet into Tag Marshall. So we're able to tag the carts or the tags appropriately to the groups. Also, we can label the groups, whether they're leagues or outings or golf groups that are coming out. In addition, as the groups leave the first tee, it will automatically tag their carts to that tee time as well. So we can either manually assign the cart number to the group, or it's automatically done.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And from a service point of view, obviously it is your goal to drive lots of repeat play, really build community. Um, when would you say that your staff is familiar with the regulars, just knowing their names, so they would also then know, I don't know any of these names. These guys are new. That probably haven't been here before. And how does that help
Mhm.
them anticipate the management of the flow?
Sure. If it's regular names, it's obviously a little easier conversation. They may also know that this group's usually plays a little bit faster. Maybe they had up bad holes. So let's just watch
Mm.
them for a hole or two. And if they're names that we don't recognize, it's an opportunity for us to do a little education, train them on what pace of play is if they're not sure. And then I'll show them what the system is, how it monitors their play, and how it helps them to keep on their position throughout the round.
So one thing I want to point out is that we really want to show the hole by hole performance, right? So which holes did the group fall behind, and then also what was their status? So this is up here, this dial. First 3 holes were fine, then they got laid, and now the last 3 holes where there actually have been delays, right? So then you know that at a glance, and remember. The alternative is, well, let's go out there and look for trouble, and that's not always easy, right? Because how do you know if there's a gap between two groups? Well, the group ahead might actually be quicker, or is it because a group is falling behind out of position? And this is exactly what the players also know, right? So if you don't have data to show them on a tablet, they very often will push back and say, well, it's not us, it's the guys in front of us. Or where were you half an hour ago when we were held up, right? So
Mm.
not an easy conversation. Players obviously getting very sensitive around the pace and potentially being called out. So data really paves the way to constructive engagement. Yeah, I just want to point out the gap time monitored on here, that is straight from the tours, right? That's how they love to look at pace because they want to see the gaps between groups, and gap time is their one metric. But our system, because we can obviously look at a course and course data over an extended period, not just that one 3-day event that the tour would go from course to course and everything starts afresh. They have to simplify it a little bit, but we would really know, yeah, where are the choke points and so on. And we want to then also understand what is the biggest problem right now, not just is a group 5 minutes out versus where they're supposed to be, but do they have a tail that they're impacting, right? And also, how early on in the round are they starting to fall behind? Is it a trend? Is it getting worse? Right? All of those things get calculated the whole time, and then we really want to bump up the size and the color so that your team can see in 3 seconds what's going on, and then yeah, interact accordingly. Let me jump on a little bit on the business end here because obviously we are in the business of creating experiences and we want people to come back, but we can only provide a quality experience, fantastic conditioning, and good staff if we can drive revenue alongside. And this is where you mentioned it earlier, Ben. Golf has had a fantastic updraft, right? With COVID and with people having more flexibility with hybrid work and so on. And also, you said it too, and we're going to talk about that separately, but the Top Golf side of the game has really started to feed more players in, and also younger players than we've had in ever, right? So it's a fantastic opportunity, but there is some warning signs, and one is public golf bleeds 21% of its golfer base every year. So by default, we have to fill up the funnel. And if we can avoid that and maybe drop that to 15%, then we're actually going to grow the base further. So retention is absolutely important. And we know some of the critical factors to play is how long does it take me, but also am I getting better at the game because it's hard, right? And is it fun where you go play, right? Is there community around that? So let me just ask you, Ben, and you mentioned some of your leagues, but in real terms, talk a little bit about what are you doing for retention, and to make sure that your players really stick with it and come back many times, and including having built out your range now with technology enablement.
Yeah, I think, well, retention for new golfers, I would say, is designing the programs and at realistic times that they can, if they want to access the golf course, it's at times where we can have them out there at an appropriate pace. So like a very beginner ladies clinic that we ran on Top Tracer, we had a couple hundred different faces come through that. And then we got a percentage of those out on the golf course, and we can't expect them to be 2 hours on the dot out of the
Sure.
gate. So scheduling that on the appropriate evening where they can have a little shotgun, have a nine holes to themselves. But while we're there, explaining majority of those golfers are using carts. So explaining tag marshal, and how they can look up at the screen and know, oh shoot, I'm this color, we should get moving. It's not a quick snap your fingers and they're trained.
Sure.
But it's something that we can certainly just continue to chip away at and make sure that they feel comfortable out there. I mean, I think the biggest thing there is for people to understand that like your score almost doesn't matter as long as you know how to fix a divot and keep up pace of play, you're good.
Yeah.
And this is a tool that if they know how to look up at the screen and monitor themselves, it's a tool that they can take with them for sure. So I don't know if that directly answered your question.
Oh yeah, but look, I think teaching the etiquette is great, and being informative about it because it's not an easy space to land in, right? It's not, there's so many unspoken rules. So the more you can be proactive around communication, the better for the new players. And fantastic to you and the team for attracting 700 or a couple of hundred ladies into that clinic. That is brilliant marketing, one, but also that is the untapped potential of golf, right? It's still a male-dominated sport, so there's a whole host of people that we can get out on the course. Yeah, so it's great to hear that you're so proactive about that, and obviously attracting new players and the retention. I think what you're doing, and we'll talk to that a bit more in just a minute too, is that you're creating spaces on the course that are appropriate, right, for tournaments, for newbies, for seasoned players. And I think where the standard used to be, well, just book a tee time. We'll start you in anywhere. And then you actually have a very hot mess that you need to manage, right? So bringing controllables into that space is quite critical. So one of the things that we always try and advocate on in the same vein here is, do we need to run one set of goal times for everything that we do, right? Or do we actually need to be a bit more appropriate if we have a tournament where players are going to maybe adjust their pre-shot routine and it's a bit more serious? Do we need to give them a little bit more time? But on the flip side, are there times of the day where we can really speed things up? So, Craig, how do you guys think about that and the ability to adjust goal times within the system?
Sure. For example, we have a busy league schedule Monday through Thursdays in the afternoons during the summer. So we utilize a 2:15 pace variable goal time off of the usual 2:10 for the front. And so that gives a little bit more time for them to get around, and utilizing that system allows them to, and the schedule goes from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., helps us to allow groups to finish on time that are teeing up later in the day. Um, and then having the ability to change goal times weekend mornings, where we find that play is playing a little bit faster. It helps us to manage that pace earlier in the day on a busy weekend day to move a little bit quicker, to help with a successful pace day.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that it's not a one size fits all buffet, right? Like we really want to get more specific and also communicate around that. And that goes all the way to, for instance, Pebble Beach, which is a tricky course to play and manage from a design point of view, but obviously it's iconic. Um, they are very strict around their tee times allocation versus expected pace, and it's all over their communication because they realize we can really start our day quickly, and we want to do that so that the rest of the day can follow through, and we don't have people finish their rounds in the twilight or not able to finish their rounds, right? Because to them that's a mission fail. But I wanted to give you one on the pace question. I think one little joke that you're going to love. An operator from Florida told me that whenever somebody asks him, "What's the course record?" he says 3 hours and 12. So that really immediately switches people's thinking into, hey, maybe pace should be a record here too, not just my score, right? So this is
Mhm.
what the tea time also the goal time allocation looks like in the system. So it really staggers accordingly, and then we can see how the various groups that come through within those time frames, hour by hour. Yeah, so we want to just pay homage here quickly to an old friend of ours has sadly passed, Bill Yates. He's the original pace of play guru, and he said, "Hey, fellas, if I was 30 years younger, I would have built exactly what you guys are building, right? Technology-enabled system," because he used to consult courses very successfully, but with manual means, lots of stopwatches, lots of time, lots of spreadsheets, and yeah, and he said what operators mistakenly fear is that by changing the starting interval to load the course properly, the course will lose players and revenue. What actually happens is quite the opposite, right? So once you really understand how things work according to data, you can really dial into this opportunity, not just speeding things up for people, but also tightening intervals and actually generating revenue. So to give you an idea, yeah, what this means, just a 10-minute standard interval versus what you're running at the courses now, which is a 8-minute interval in the early times with a goal to speed up play a little bit and get the better and appropriate players to come at that time. And then staggering the intervals as the day progresses, and then tightening intervals again later in the day, where very often pace actually picks up again. But that gives you basically a 15% lift in tee times, right? So it's 9 additional tee times, and if you just do simple math on what's the average person spend is if it's $80 or something, that's a couple of $100,000 in business gains, right? So it makes absolute sense to try and do that and really optimize the inventory, and it's never finished, right? You can always learn more, and you can always dial in a little bit better, and the outcome is, if you do it well, your golfers will be happy because you get them through in a good time, but also you can open up and generate additional capacity on the days that matter. And we spoke about that very early on, right? Tea time availability is so key. So wherever we can, it may not be applicable. You're not fully booked every day, but on many days you are. Find a few more tea times, fantastic for business. Yeah, how are you thinking about that? Um, uh, yeah, let me jump back to Ben. Going forward, in terms of analyzing opportunities and looking at how you can tweak it and yeah, also be appropriate for your golfers.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we're talking about here actively right now with different timelines, especially weekends. So following that, how, how do you, and this is a question, I don't know, but how to make sure that we're properly informing the customer. Okay, you booked a 7 a.m. tee time, here's the expectation. You booked a 10:30 tee time, here's the expectation. And that's something that we're going to actively work on through our winter months on how to properly implement in 2026 with more regularity. Because I think this is crucial information in order to, when you're managing anything, setting proper expectations, I think is key, right? So to send someone out at 11 a.m. on a normal, in the peak season and to sit in an office here and say, yeah, well, they should finish in 4 hours. Well, we know that's not accurate.
Sure.
So it's cool that we have all this built up over the last couple of years because now we can start to jump into these advanced areas for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and yeah, really excited that you're starting to dial into it, and but again, it goes back to one of the points made earlier that players want proactive communication around pace of play, right? So wherever you can, and that obviously can be dynamic in a way, whether that's your at the booking online or it might be the confirmation email that gets sent. Certainly in the clubhouse with your TV up, hey, that's a pace expectation this morning, or for these next 2 hours, your starter, and then a reminder in the cart. So the more often you repeat that and you set these expectations, the safer the players feel around it, the more they buy into it, and also then there's no excuses, right? So you really help them and you help yourself. So it's great that you are thinking into strategies around this. So obviously, and we spoke about it earlier, this is an impossible task to do manually, right? And Bill Yates was the lone hero here that used to have 5 stopwatches and go sit at a course for a whole week, really studying every hole and many players going through and building a baseline data set. But this is difficult to do, right? So obviously that's where technology is helpful to take some of that heavy lifting away from you. And we want to talk to just a few of the features that are built into the program that and how they're helpful and how you use them. So Craig, going back to you, obviously driving 40,000 rounds, the majority of them in quite a condensed period, you need to protect your turf. How do you guys utilize the geofencing and how is it working? And importantly, is your superintendent happy with what it does for you?
Yes, absolutely. We utilize it to protect our approach areas. We usually do 90-degree cart traffic as much as we can across fairways, but utilizing it for protecting those areas around the greens. We get notifications when those get breached. We also have the ability to pull a cart's entire round and see where they breached the entire round, and so we can have a conversation with that player. So for next time they play, they know where not to drive. But in particular, with the wet spring that we had, we did a lot more cart path only days, just because it was really wet through April and May. So superintendent appreciated the fact that we were able to keep fairways off and really direct the traffic where it needed to be, so they weren't driving through mud.
Yeah, 100%. And he's the most important person, the VIP, right? So we want to give him the right tools. So here's another one, and this is what you're alluding to. We have a history of every round, right? A history of every round that gets played. We've got the player names attached. We've got the tee time attached. We've got the cart number attached, or both carts in this case. We can then see what was their pace at what point, what were the interactions with the staff, where did they happen, and also, yeah, were there geofence breaches. Question for Ben. Yeah, how is this useful to you from a management standpoint?
Um, I mean, as far as the breaches, I know, again, I'm not involved as often in these firsthand, but sometimes we'll get a breach and then jump right in and do a quick history before we're gonna have a conversation with someone. I mean, they might have one little oops breach is sometimes okay, but then all of a sudden you see, yeah, they've been all over the place. So to flag those people, try to make notes within our POS system of any issues that we had with someone so that we know next time they return, it's something we're getting into as well. But no, I think it's key. I mean, it's key, as we've talked about before, is the big breaches or the greens, God forbid someone drives over the green, to have exactly who did it, when, and what card is huge for our product. So
Yeah, good point. And just to explain that a little bit better, so the screen will actually pop up a geofence alert and it beeps like a truck reversing, right? So it's the players know, right? They know, and we can even turn it on so that you can see the geofenced area on the map, so that yeah, there shouldn't be any excuses. And for the most part, and I firmly believe that players want to be compliant, they just often don't have the information, right? So that's another way of making sure that they do, and double sure that they do, right? Um, uh, but other question for you, maybe, Craig, and obviously doing 40,000 rounds, you don't always get it right, okay? You get it right very often, but not always. And sometimes a few days later, somebody emails or phones the clubhouse and says, like, I've sat with this now for a few days, but it was a 6 hour round, and you should really do something about that. Or they might even go on Google and one star rate you because they're feeling aggrieved. How is it then helpful to have the history?
Oh, it's huge. To be able to pull up the map and of the round, the full report, you can see every point of where the group was either delayed, and that helps us find out what groups were the delayers if we didn't quite catch them as early as we needed to that day, and helps us make notes for the next time that those players come out. Uh, in addition, sometimes we'll get some complaints for pace of play that might not necessarily have been as long as they had said it was. So it could have been a 4.5 hour round, but they had thought it was 5 hours. So we're able to pull that report, send it along, and say, oh, well, this is our report, and this is how long it took us to play. So it works in both ways that we can approach that in each situation.
Yeah, so that's exactly the thing, right? Because pace is so emotional, right? Perception becomes reality very quickly, right? So the
Hmm.
perception then overrides, the whatever data points the player might have. So it's really important to have that information, and our system here even has a share button. So you can take a picture of this basically and then share it with the player, so that you can have a information grounded, data grounded conversation rather than
Hmm.
yeah, they might just feel aggrieved, and then if you don't have the information, well, you're gonna discount them, or say sorry. Where sometimes that's and it works both ways, right? You also want to hold yourself accountable. And if it was a 4 hour 45 round and the player points this out to you, then you can, yes, today we didn't get it right, but I can show you that our season average is exactly 4 hours 15, 4 hours 16, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
So that's because we really pay attention to it. So one of the things that I really love how you use communication so proactively. The system obviously allows for advertising, and you can use that to dial in your halfway house or to dial in clinics you might be running. You can even advertise your top tracer range on here, or just good old ads for money, right? But what really like what you guys do, and I've actually told our product team that we need to bake this into the system from the get-go, especially if we know this is a new player at the course. Really just the basics of explaining the colors, because the colors that we spoke about on the live map earlier, they transfer through onto the screen. So as somebody goes and plays around, there's a band at the bottom of the GPS that shows them their status, so that there's no surprises, right? So I really like that. And then another opportunity, obviously, while we're engaging with players, is yes, to get them to sign a waiver form. Yeah, so we've had this request come through, quite a few times. So we actually built it into the program. So if you're interested, we can talk about how we can make that, turn that on for you guys. Is that something that you've looked at? And I don't know, Ben, from your side, is that something that you've looked at? Why does a club need to do it? And also what you've done previously, is that working for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what we've done previously is a little haphazard, but to try to keep liability on the customer, it's absolutely something that we're looking into. What's the best method? And I think it's going to be a combination of verbal communication, website, on our T sheet, whether it's online, on the receipt printed at the counter, plus tag Marshall. I think you just got to hit it from
Yeah.
all angles. Because that's a separate call that we can have someday, best practices on how to best implement this. But I think this is crucial, before they tee off, to say, yes, I agree. From a legal perspective, I think is going to be a huge benefit.
Yeah, because we're grabbing the T-sheet data from Club Profit in this case, we know how many times has this player been at the course. So the way that we would look to design that, once the cards are signed, we would know this player does have a live form with you that they fill in start of the season. So we're not going to bug them, and their form will run for the season. So we need to look at, and obviously want to get your input. Should it be a 12 months rolling, or should it be for a season and then you start again come the new calendar year? But we always really appreciate what has your experience been, and how can we then build that into how we can make this offering better, because we do know it's key, and if accidents happen, cards get bashed up, right? So there needs to be a level of accountability. Let's jump back to another integration that we really value, and that's with Golf Genius. Craig, from your point of view, is that something that you're considering, and that you think can be helpful to your events?
Mhm. Yeah, with our leagues that we run in-house here, we'd be moving to mobile scoring next year. So this would help get results done faster, would help add um, a resource for players to keep scores that it's right there on the carts. They're ready for them as it is. So getting scores faster, getting results out faster, everybody wants things done quick. So this would certainly be helpful into outings as well.
Yeah, it's
I was
good
going to
if
say
See the
outings
live
right there.
leaderboard.
We'll save 10 to 15 minutes at the end of an outing, which
Oh
is
yeah.
a huge amount of time
no,
to jump
sure.
into awards.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better when the last group comes in after shotgun and you can immediately engage them, right? And it's not sit around and wait for what happens next. So brilliant, and it'll be good for your bar too, because somebody's won, and and you can go have fun. Okay, let's look at a bit more data on the deeper end. And I also need to be mindful of our time. There's really fantastic feedback coming from you, and I really value it. But I may need to speed us up a little bit just so we can stay on the hour. So this is a good day in the office at the Oaks course. This is actually that period that's more recent, but you've done many of those, and this is a month or basically a couple of weeks view, and that shows you that versus a goal time of 4:20, you're bringing that all in 4 hours, 6 minutes, and 36 seconds. And then here's a breakdown down here of the percentage of groups that are faster than pace, on pace, or within 10 minutes, and there's obviously a few always that may be a couple of minutes out. But there's really only 2 days in this entire stretch. It was busy where you're just tiny bit over your goal time. So from a management point of view, yeah, Ben, how is it useful to you to have this information? Is it staff accountability? Is it just adjusting things so that you can keep improving? And also, how do you compare one course with the other?
Yeah, I mean, we're historically a little slower. So, I mean, to see that number, I love that. And I think it completely changes our messaging when we're asking customers to play in 420, to have this data, to know that we're actually quite capable of 410 or better. To know that we're not asking them to do the impossible.
Yeah.
So I just think having the data to back up all of our conversations, both internally and with the customers, is just a huge asset.
Yeah, brilliant. And yeah, if you at the Woods course here, Craig, this is your home turf, but this is your season, right? So for you guys to be dialed in at this point where you're saying, okay, our goal time is 4:20, you're bringing in your entire season, basically down to 10 seconds of that. I mean, this is fantastic, right? I mean, if Delta had this level of accuracy, right, they would be printing money and their shares would be through the roof. So I'm hoping that's what it's like for you guys. But just having the accuracy around it and the planability is in action here, clearly, right? So what we're seeing with the seasonal data is that your first half of the day actually runs in 3 hours 52 minutes, and then you're going up to the 4:25s or so, right? And it obviously averages out, and then as the day progresses and you've got a bit less play later in the day, it speeds up again. So every course has got its own pattern like that, and it's just really important to start understanding both from what are opportunities to do variable goal times, tighten intervals where things are quicker potentially, but also how do we staff and pay attention to those key hours, key times of day, key days of the week, not just anecdotally, but really based on data. So yeah, given that, and let me just jump one ahead. Also, the distribution of, hey, there's a lot of really quick stuff happening here, lots of on pace, lots of within 10 minutes, and obviously there's it's never perfect. Otherwise, your average time would be under 4, but it will average out, right? That's a part of it. But Craig, from your point of view, just you've got so much data now. How is it? How are you thinking about next season and tweaking and dialing in? And what are some of the things that you think you can still look to improve?
Sure. Yeah, looking at the data that we've compiled over the last 3 years now, we're able to really take a look at those early times, see what we can make adjustments there. We also really like looking at the data of the time spent on the fairways, tees, greens. So it helps us to know where our staff is situated and at what time of the day, to help us, find ways to improve. And so that's our goal this winter, is to dive in a little bit more into those earlier times, see where we can see, whether we interval updates, and then when we do start to slow down at that 8, 9, 10 area, a little bit more so is where's our staff need to be to catch those groups a little earlier.
Nice. I want to just point out that obviously you and your teams are now quite well versed and thinking differently around how your course runs. But from Tag Marshal's side, we want to really soft launch an operator into this. So when we get going, we have a learning management system that has video-based content that looks at all the different features and how to get things set up and so on. And then we have a customer success agent that most of our team are former PGA pros that have run golf courses and or have worked with the system to really help you get there faster, right? Because they've done this hundreds of times now, right? So really getting to this point more quickly and yeah, actively guiding you to understand what are your goals, how can we help you get there, so that you don't have to, yeah, bump your toes and learn things slowly over time. Of course, it's iterative, but just to get there faster. So we really want to put as much effort into that as we can. So darling, going back to the Oaks course, and one of the things that our system does, and down here is original screen grab from that analytics hub for the Oaks, is the hole by hole run time broken down into time on tee box, time on fairway, time on green. And yeah, Ben, your course is really nicely dialed in. Again, it's just a couple of seconds out on the data and how things run. There's maybe some opportunities to tighten things a bit, and maybe one hole is hole 7, maybe needs a bit of breathing space. But the more accurate we can make that, the more accurate the system is in terms of its display, and the more accurate we can hold the players accountable. You would have tweaked this over time directly in the system or with our team. How is it helping you, yeah, look for opportunities to, yeah, incrementally get better and better and better around this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just what Craig said, just making sure the staff knows the holes that they need to be at. I mean, even without direction from Tag Marshall. So if there's no color indicators and there's no communication saying we think we have an issue at whatever that hole might be, to have our ranger out there and to know specifically which holes, like 7, I can picture exactly why, you know, so to know where they can kind of set up camp while they're awaiting their issue call.
Yeah,
I think
for
is
sure.
key.
Yeah, I like the strategic positioning. But what's really cool, you can see that your tee box actually averages to as planned. Your fairway is 1 minute over, and your greens 1 minute under, right? So we can obviously dial that in, but it's really tweaks. Whereas remember, when we start out, we first get how do you think your course runs, right? And very often that is wildly different to what the data says. And sometimes, yeah, 2, 3 minutes on every hole. Now you have a disparity of 15, 18, 20 minutes, depending. And for the data really to lead is absolutely key. Okay, this is one of my favorite photos of this whole set. So Ben, firstly, tell us how you went about getting tech onto your range. Obviously, the Rome is not built in a day. And then Craig answered a question for me: how has the technology been received by your players? And that's Tag Marshall, not Top Tracer, as much as we love them. But tell us about your journey into Top Tracer with the range there, Ben, before we get to the other question.
Yeah, started 3 years ago. It was one big grass tee. We put Top Tracer in, which was in place all of 2024 as well, 2024. And then by last September is when you see all the pavilions, food truck, bathrooms on the right. All those went in. So this is our first full year with that setup that you see there.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that
you
was a
can
big
see.
band night. That's not, you don't put Top Tracer in. It doesn't look like that every night. We had a big band.
No, okay, okay.
We're
Um,
jamming.
that's brilliant too, right? You can drive events around it, but it really looks like, yeah, a place you want to be, right? And hit some balls. So that's fantastic. And as you said earlier, you're using it proactively to get players to the course more often, and then recruiting, yeah, new players onto the course too. And then obviously you want to manage your on-course. That is your primary business driver, but it's great to have yeah, both pillars now. Craig, from just going back to the question, yeah, how your golfers responding to having Tag Marshall and also knowing that, yeah, pace happens by design at the Woods course.
Yeah, I think player response has been very positive. They know when they get there, and from check-in, that we're monitoring play and keeping an eye on things out there. That they know that they're going to have a reasonable pace out there. In addition, having tag marshal system in their cart and helps them know where they are. Because prior to that, and unless they're looking at their watch, they wouldn't have known what time they were playing and when. So having it right there is a big help, and they know that it's being done in a fair way, and all groups are being held to that same standard.
Yeah, I think it's a group effort ultimately, right? And everyone has a responsibility towards it. So it's great. The way you go about it, the communication, the proactiveness, certainly benefits the players, and it's good for business. Yeah, we're excited about a piece of tech that we acquired earlier in the year and that we are launching more broadly into the market, and that's both on course. It's called Wind Tag, so it measures the wind at the green, and it's got a GPS in it, so we can answer the two questions that golfers want to know: how far to the pin, automated, and what's the wind doing, right? So I can pick the right club and make better decisions. Obviously helps the pace too, but that goes straight onto the screen. So we're excited about that. And then there's obviously a range application here too, because wind range training, right? It's and coaching all goes hand in hand. Is that something that you would consider giving a try? And would that excite your players? What do you think, Ben?
I think it would. I mean, I think for a certain percentage of people, they would really come into play on the course. I see it on the driving range, especially with Top Tracer playing these games, the wind does affect the performance. I mean, just like it would on the course. So it's a pretty cool feature, and I'm interested in learning more for sure.
Yeah, and we were at an event recently at PGA Frisco, which is the PGA of America's amazing headquarter, and they've got a three-directional range, and you can literally see the flags responding to the wind completely differently depending on the distance and also which side of the range. So it does make a difference, right? But yeah, how would we know? Is this a 5 mile wind? Is it a 12 mile wind? Is there wind where I'm standing? Yes, no. What's it further out? So we know that it really impacts play, and we can use it as an additional data point. Whereas Ben, who came up with this fantastic concept, Ben Holbrook from our team, he said it's 2025. Why are we still throwing grass in the air as data point, right? So it's such a simple opportunity, but we've got fantastic tech to change that and bring an industry first out into the game. So thank you, gents. I really thought that was fantastic, and well done on a standout season at both courses. I'm sure, up and better next year, and hopefully not as wet a spring. These are obviously some of our fantastic and committed people. There's Michael, who's our partnership executive in the area. Joey's our GM. I mentioned him earlier. And David, he's Augusta resident, our VP of Business Development. Pick their number if you want to reach out and learn more. Are we going to see you guys at the PGA show end of January?
Be there.
Yes. Yep.
Come down. We'll have a wind tag demo. You can fill it out and
all right.
And you think.
Excellent.
And, looking forward to seeing you. It's only a few weeks away, which is always scary. So our team gets very busy over this silly season now to get ready for that. We look forward to seeing you down there, and hopefully you've got a few more nice and warm days and lots of play out. And and enjoy your Thanksgiving next week. Thank you for your time.
Thank
It's
you.
been fantastic.
Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gents. All the best.